Yeah, man, it was really cool having Billy on the show, and now I have you on, and I'm gonna have Joey on next month. It's gonna be really cool, man. Thanks for being on, Tom. I really appreciate it. I've known you for a long
I
time.
appreciate you having me on.
No, man, it's really cool, man. I mean, this is what's. I mean, Facebook is good and it's bad, and it's good to the sense that we could like still communicate with each other, and we both had like a really big hit in the last month with the passing of our friend Joey Moore, and that really
Yeah, yeah.
hit a lot of
Great
people.
drummer. He was one of the first to start coming up here when I
Yeah,
first started, years ago, back in the mid '80s. He was just a
he
young kid.
he was like 14 years old. He started coming up there. I think maybe earlier. You know, and I mean, besides just being a great drummer, at a young age and recent. I mean, he was just a good human being. I,
Yes, he
I
was a good guy.
he was an
We
awesome
hung out
guy.
many times here.
Yeah, I remember a
That
Quake
was
Fest in the '80s and the '90s. It was a lot of fun.
Well, realistically, earthquakes started in 1979.
Oh wow! And
That's when I actually first found this building to start renting,
right,
and it was just for my own private band. And then back then, there were still a lot of clubs that were like rock clubs where bands were playing, you know, a few nights a week. You could still get like 3, 4 nights a week work in the early '80s,
yeah,
and the crowds were good. There was good crowds at bars and restaurants. Well, not even restaurants; they were bars. They were rock bars. Today it's
yeah,
different. Today everything's like restaurants today with bars in them. But back then, you had just regular bars that really didn't care about the food. It was just drinks and music. And we had some bands that used to, be on the circuit, and we were hanging around with them, and they found out we had this studio, and they're
yeah,
like, "Hey, we'd like to rehearse here. How much do you want?" And I was like, I don't know. Give me like, $10 an hour. I was like,
yeah, yeah. And that
back
was
then
a
it was
lot.
like 19, it was the early '80s, and it was like, and they started coming up like every day, these bands. So
Yeah,
finally I opened it up for business. I was like almost forced into doing it, because so many people wanted to do it. I saw money signs. I'm like, well, I'm going to open up,
I
you
hear a
know.
lot of stories about one club, and it was on Taylor Road. And I, of course, you remember the old JJ Rockers
Arrow
and
Lounge.
the Arrow Lounge, and Twisted Sister
That
played
was
there a couple
JJ
times.
Rockers. That was the same
That-
building.
yeah, and didn't Twisted Sister play there a couple times?
Yeah, you had bands like uh, White Tiger,
Yep.
Twisted Sister, Prophet played there with the
Uh,
drummer Eric, the really good drummer Eric. They were
yeah,
really good. Yeah, back in the heyday, all the big bands were playing there. Yeah, Sam
and
the
that's
Band
what.
used a band called Sam the Band. They were good.
Yep, and that's what
Yeah,
was cool back then, man. I mean, I mean, you're a little bit older than me, but both of us being musicians, we were lucky enough to live in that era where all these New Jersey
that
clubs.
was a lot of fun.
I mean, you had
Well,
Club in
before
A.
the '80s, in the '70s, when I grew up,
Yeah,
there was a lot of bands around town. The drinking age was still 18.
right.
So you could go out and work, you could work 4 or 5 nights a week. And when I was 11 years old, I was a pretty decent little drummer, and I was playing with all the older kids that were like,
Yeah,
14, 15. And my dad owned a bar that had bands with a stage, and it was always crowded. And sometimes he would have downstairs parties, and he'd have my band play, and we'd get paid for it. And then a couple times he had cancellations upstairs,
right.
and he called my mother up and said, "Get the kids together and bring them up." We get in the old station wagon. My mother would drive us up there, and we play in front of all the adults.
Oh, that's
And
cool,
oh,
man. Yeah, I didn't
crazy!
know
That's how
that.
I got my start. Yeah.
And
And then, of course, through high school, I still kept playing in bands and playing drums and honing my skills. So I'm still honing my skills.
we're always
I'm still
growing, man.
practicing.
I see
Yeah,
a
you're
lot of
always
videos what
practicing.
you playing now, and you're on your game, man. You're you're really good, man. You kept it up, and
Trying to get better. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to learn more technical stuff.
w-
So
well, you're playing a lot of different styles of music, and I tell a lot
I
of
want to learn a lot.
musicians this. Like I always tell people this who were just starting out. I mean, I remember when I was starting out, you can't be stuck in one genre of music, or you're never going to grow.
Right.
And I
Exactly.
tell people this a lot, and they're like, "No, you're not a metalhead." I'm like, "I love metal, but I like the Bee Gees too, man. I like Duran Duran, all this music, and it's good to learn
I
different
play
styles
that.
of music.
Well, the thing is this, I always wanted to make money playing drums. So
Yes.
because I was in the music business to make money, I was always looking for a gig, whether it was with another band or play with two different bands. Some nights I would play with two different bands on the same night.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I do 2 or 3 gigs within 24 hours. I mean, I would take as many gigs as I can, just travel around. I'm not afraid to travel all over, even out of state, to get the gig, you know, as long as it's a paying gig. I mean, I
Yeah.
played with Irish Celtic bands, dance bands,
Yeah.
metal bands, a lot of stuff with heavy metal and hard rock, but a lot with classic rock and covers. You know,
Yeah.
doing classic rock covers. I've done it my whole life, and I think I'm up to I'm up to like 3,500 and like 50 some odd shows. You know, like I went back and I averaged it out. You know, some years I was doing 250 shows a year. A lot of years I was doing around 90 to 105 shows a year.
Right.
And, you know, I've been doing this since I was 11. So, you know, when I was 11, I might have only done, you know, a few shows back then. But the bottom line was by the time I was out of high school, and I did 1 year of college, but when I got out of college, I started working steadily, like 3 nights a week playing
Right.
gigs. And even through high school, I was still doing gigs, you know, whatever gigs I can get, parties and battles of the bands and dances. Back then they called them dances. They were more like concerts, you know.
Yeah, they weren't
And
like battles of the bands back then. It was like, yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah, they
It,
were like concerts, you know. And you know, I mean, you had to grow with the time. So I was playing everything. And then of course, in 1986, when I got my recording equipment in here, and
yeah.
I started learning how to do tape recording. That was the big reel-to-reel tapes. And
Yes.
Pierce was in rehearsing, and
Yes.
they were auditioning drummers, and I was listening to them audition drummer one after another, playing the same songs over and over every week. So they finally got a drummer, and they were getting ready to open up. They had a gig coming up in like 1 week or maybe 10 days. They had a gig coming up at Close Encounters opening for Xyrus, which was Zach Wild
Zach Wild's band. Yeah.
when he was young and skinny, when he was a
Yes.
little young skinny guy. So you know, they were all psyched up to play that, and they booked my studio for a like a kind of like a dress rehearsal the week before,
Yeah.
and all their friends show up. About 30 people show up, and I charge them a little extra, you
Yeah.
know, because of that reason. And they all show up to play, and the drummer don't show up. The guy that they picked, the new drummer,
Great.
doesn't show up. So they come out to me and they say, well, you know, we'll just pay you for the hour. You know, we're sorry, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, you know, if you want, I said, I'll come in and jam with you guys. And they go, well, you don't know our stuff. I said, yeah, I know your stuff.
I've
I've
been
been
listening
listening to
to
it
it.
for the past month, playing, you know, sitting here playing along with it. So they're like, all right. So I went back there and I jammed,
Yeah.
and it came out pretty damn good. So later on, Dennis and Billy told me they wanted to, you know, if I could learn the songs, and you know, I could do the gig with them the next week. So the
Right.
bass player at the time didn't like me. He said he's too fat and too much of a loudmouth. That's what he said. He didn't like me personally. So he quit. And it just so happened that my buddy Joe Cali, was
Yes.
he just came off tour with Hellion. Remember Hellion, the band?
Yes. Oh my
Right?
God. I didn't know Joe was in Hellion. Okay.
Yeah. He just got off tour with them, and he was back here visiting his parents. And I was with Joey in a band years before this, you know, in a cover
Right.
band that originals, yeah. And so I called him and I said, hey, Joey, you know, you're home. I said, come down and play a gig with us, learn some songs. We'll practice every night. We'll do the gig.
Yeah.
So he goes, really? He goes, I'll come down. So he came down and we rehearsed every night. We only had to do one set. We went out and we blew doors off. And then after that, Joey was like, he goes, I'm not going back to California. I think you guys got something going on here. And
Right.
Billy and Dennis had half an album already recorded.
Right.
First album. It was already half the album, like 5 songs the album were already recorded. They had to finish the album. It was all, they had a record contract and everything with an indie label, which was a Skreamin Skull label. They were an
Yes.
offshoot of Grand Slam Records. And that was Grand Slam was White Lion's label.
White Lion was signed by them for, yeah.
Right. So when White Lion went onto Atlantic and went big, Grand Slam sold a lot of albums. They made money. So the 2 guys in Grand Slam were partners. The one guy didn't want us, but the one guy wanted us. So he formed his own company called Skreamin Skull.
Yeah.
He signed us and he financed our albums and everything. And we went back into the studio and finished. I did 5 tracks on that first album. We finished it. And They came out really good. And then we started immediately. Joey had all the connections for, to go out to California and just go out there and start,
Yes.
playing some clubs. So I said, hey, if you guys are serious, man, let's go out and do some gigs like around the country. Because
Yeah.
back then you didn't have the internet. You didn't
No.
have all the stuff that you have today. You had to go out and actually do it. And
You
when you went out
worked.
there, you took merchandise with you and you sold it to make money.
Yes.
Albums, cassette. We didn't have
Yeah.
CDs
I mean,
yet.
that
It
was
was just vinyl and cassette. But the thing was when you went to a Tower record store or Sam Goody, our album was out there. Our vinyl album was out there in the stores. We had good distribution.
so
We
cool.
were selling records, and we went out and we did it. We went on tour many times, back and forth, and down to Florida and back, down to South, Louisiana, Texas, all around, New Mexico, California, Arizona. Some gigs were like little dirt holes, and some gigs were like big giant places like Dallas city limits. I had to go upstairs to get to the drum room. To get to the drums, I had to climb upstairs. That's
freaking awesome, man.
It was huge. I felt like I was on MTV and shit. It was like crazy.
The thing I remember about Pierce is you guys would play places where a lot of New Jersey bands wouldn't. You guys would play anywhere, and you played everywhere.
Anywhere.
And that's
we do 250 gigs a year.
And that you guys really worked your asses off, and you guys were like a family. You guys were like a family.
Well, we all lived and we moved into the studio because it didn't make any sense to rent apartments away from the studio. So we had a shower put in here. My buddy Mike Fish, who passed away years ago from pancreatic cancer. He was our personal manager, and he was a big guy in like the production, producing big shows outside and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he was real good at like holding the fort down here at the studio when we were on the road.
Yeah,
he did a lot of our management work. He got us hooked up with all kinds of lawyers and everything else to, when the band was ready to jump to CBS Records, we were all ready to go. We had a deal with CBS Records on the table.
Yeah.
And a couple of days before that, that's when Dennis got in the accident, broke his neck.
Yeah.
And then they dropped us. They dropped the deal.
Yeah.
So we never got to sign that deal. So the third album never got out. But we had a third album ready to get recorded. And everything fell out after that. After Dennis left, we tried getting another singer, but they didn't want it with another singer. He had a unique voice. Dennis had a unique voice at the time.
Well, the thing about Pierce was, look, everybody at that time, everybody looked alike in all the other bands. Like everybody, I mean, you couldn't tell who was in what band. With Pierce, you knew who was in what. And you guys weren't like the teased out pretty boys. You guys were like metal, and it was. Well, Dennis had that front man look.
Tougher look to us. We had a little tougher look.
You guys had like
leather. We got out of the spandex.
Yes.
We stopped wearing the spandex. We started doing denim and leather. The tougher look we went with. So
yeah, you guys were like
people,
power metal.
People behind the band were good. Yeah. The people behind the band were good. We had a whole team of people, and when we used to go out and headline clubs when we were on the road, we used to open up for big bands on the road, but we used to also headline. So when we headlined clubs, we had control over all the sound. And the sound man was a good singer. And a lot of times we would take roadies along with us, that would come along with us on the road. And one time we had another guy who was a pretty good singer. So we gave him a microphone backstage. Our sound man always had a microphone. So when we were doing our gang vocals and harmonies, we didn't only have 4 voices, we had 6 voices.
Yes.
With reverb. So it made it sound really big. So our live sound was really good like that when we were in control of the sound.
Yeah.
And we had a whole rack of equipment we took with us, noise gates for all the tom-toms. They used to gate the reverb on every tom. They had, separate noise gates for each, a different channel. It was really high production. We had good production, good microphones, all our own stuff. And one time when we were in California, I was sleeping in the band truck, and I heard someone banging in the back of the truck where all our equipment was. And I stood up and yelled, and it was this little like Mexican guy. And he slams the door shut, and I jump out of the truck in my underwear, and I'm screaming, and the guys come running out of the house. This is in North Hollywood, California. We were parked in front of this person who worked for a record company. They let us park and use their house as like a base operation. So the guy had a big bolt cutter. We had a giant master lock on the back of that truck. He cut it, and he opened up the truck, and he ran, and I was going to chase him, but he jumped in the car, and the car took off. Right?
Oh my God.
Guys came running down. And the first thing on the back of that truck was our big box with all the good microphones in it.
Right.
Sennheisers, AKG, all these good drum mics and everything we had in there. But there's no way that guy could have grabbed that box and gotten away. I would have caught up to him in a second.
Right.
Because back
Right.
then I was in good, by then I was in really good shape.
Yeah.
But when I
You
joined the
were.
band, they made me work out every day until I lost weight.
Oh
So I
yeah.
got back down to like 210. Yeah, because I must have weighed about 240 when I joined the band. And then I
Oh
got
wow.
down to like 210. I got down to, we worked out all the time, me and the lead singer. We kept ourselves, pumped up. We used to
Well,
kid ourselves, like, because we used to see the guy, I saw the guys in Manowar in person, and
yes.
me and my lead singer were actually bigger than they were.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Manowar
Yeah,
album cover; they're like,
they were,
what
they
is
were a
this?
little,
But
I
I
think
see.
Manowar enhanced their pictures on the album.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I
They
mean, I've
look
seen
big, they
you in
make
a
them
lot
look
of.
bigger.
I see you on the first and second album, and you were like, you had like this black leather thing on, and it was like sleeveless, and you had and you were big, man. You were cut,
Yeah. I
and
was
Dennis.
sporting 16.5-inch biceps back then.
Wow.
16.5 inch. Yeah, we were that vain. We actually measured our biceps.
I mean, and two, you gotta look. I mean, you know it, and I know it because we're both singers and drummers. The, I think that the singer and the drummer take the biggest beating in a band, and not that the bass player and guitar player don't, but we got to keep in shape, man. I mean,
Oh yeah,
it's hard on us, man.
we
I mean,
breathe heavier. We're especially when you're singing and drumming, like
oh
I do
yeah,
now for the cover tunes. Back then, I
yes,
only did backgrounds, but
yes,
now I'm singing lead on a lot of cover tunes, and I've always done that, even when I was a kid. But
yeah,
the whole music business has changed now since the internet and
yeah,
all that. Some people can become internet sensations without ever playing a gig live.
and that's
If they
what's
market it right.
it's scary to a point. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like how can I say this? I mean, there's nothing like playing live. There's nothing like getting behind a kit or singing. I don't play guitar or bass, but there's nothing like doing it live. When you're doing it on the internet, it's cool, but we didn't have that. We worked our asses
Yeah.
off, and I know you guys did.
Right. We had to go out and do it live. And the thing I
Yeah,
was thinking about now is now that we're like, I'm like older, I'm like 62 now, right?
yeah,
I'm thinking, well, maybe we ought to just like record some really good songs, and then we'll have a younger band, a bunch of young, good-looking guys actually fake it like Milli Vanilli, and they'll be playing
like
to our track. And then people will see them. Oh, look at this new young band,
right,
this heavy new young band,
right. Do like the
because
Milli
I'm too
Vanilli
old.
thing.
We're too old now. So, but I've always given lessons. I mean, the thing with me is I keep myself busy because this is how I survive. I don't
Yeah,
like working regular jobs. I do here and there. I've done some different things here. And right now I'm doing driving instruction too, but
yeah,
I still do my drum instruction. I have a certain amount of students per week, and I have a certain amount of gigs. And back before COVID, everything was building really good. I had a lot of students. I
yeah.
had a lot of gigs booked for that year. I think that we had about 100 gigs booked. We were averaging, about 100 gigs a year, and it all went south. We only did a few outdoor gigs during
Right.
COVID, and a lot of my students dropped out. I did a couple of Zoom lessons, but trying to do that with drums is crazy.
That's
It's easier.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't
So
imagine doing that.
and some kids never came back. Some kids, once they stop playing drums for a year, they don't want to come back. They
Yeah,
lose interest.
they
You
didn't
got
have
to
the
keep them
heart.
interested. I've gotten some new students. Yeah, I mean, I've got some new students, but back playing gigs again every week.
Yeah,
So, I mean, the bottom line is every weekend we have a gig somewhere. And last weekend we played Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 3 days in a row. Boom, boom, boom. Now tomorrow I'm playing again, and then after I play tomorrow, I got to beeline it to a kid's house and give them a lesson, and then finally go home.
So
So I mean, I'm keeping myself busy.
yeah, you're always busy. I know that. That's why the
Yeah, and you know
schedules.
what? I'm glad to see a lot of the other like rock guys that I knew, all the other rockers, like Kenny Dubman from Prophet,
Yes,
right? He's got a new album out now. Yeah, it sounds pretty good. And you see guys like Paul Crook, he was playing with Meatloaf. Jimmy
yes.
Leahy's still out there playing. He's doing the Jimmy Leahy trio.
Jimmy
I mean,
Leahy. Yeah,
these are
I
all
remember.
these are
Yeah,
all top musicians, man, that were all around back in the day in Earthquake. They were
yeah,
all like hanging around here back in the day with their different bands, jam and this and that. We all kind of like jam together. Anthony Cry is in another one. His studio's real good. As a matter of fact, my current band BBD,
Yeah.
it's been recording in his studio.
Oh wow.
So we're my bass player is doing a whole album. He's got other drummers also appearing on it, but he's got my daughter singing on one song that I play drums on.
Oh
We're
wow.
gonna do a couple, yeah, we're gonna do a couple original songs, you know. So we're still working on that, and it's coming out really good. Anthony is great at production. He's a great guitar player too, but I mean, his studio is great. He's got a great
Redo It's Only Love. That's a
yeah,
great
I was
song.
thinking of doing that with my daughter singing that. Yeah,
That's a great
but
song, man.
it is a great song. But you know, I ran into Farron recently,
Yes.
and he played me a track that I haven't heard in a long time from
Black
Shotgun
Rain.
Alley.
Shotgun Alley.
Black Rain was Shotgun Alley was the morph of Black Rain.
Yes.
After Billy moved west, we got a different guitar player. It became Shotgun Alley, and we did some recording, and some of the songs came out great.
Yeah.
And the band was offered a management deal by a guy who was going to book us, like, you know, upstate New York, because we were also doing covers here. We were doing covers and original.
Yeah.
And back then we were doing all those current covers like Nirvana and
Yeah.
SDP. This is in the 90s when those songs were just coming out. So we were doing all the current stuff, and then we were doing our originals, and we also did some classic rock mixed in.
Right.
You know, and you know, and then when that band broke up, all of a sudden I get a letter from a company in Japan saying they were interested in signing the band.
Oh man.
Yeah. So, and by then I was already just starting to get into Rattlebone.
Yeah.
You know, and all this time while I was playing with these bands, I was also playing with other cover bands. You know, I was in a band called Four Jacks and a Jill. I was in another band called Carbon 13. So I mean, those bands were getting bookings and paid gigs. So I was doing those things, and I was still doing so. And then I got into a band in the late '90s called Niblik Henbane.
Niblik Henbane. It was a punk band.
An oi punk band. And they had a couple of records out, and I like to say that when I got the band, I thought they sounded the tightest they ever got, because I really tightened them up with the drums.
Right.
And we did an album on TKO Records called Go Away. And I don't know how many copies that thing sold, but I signed a contract where I was supposed to get, you know, a little bit of every album. Everybody was supposed to get like $1 per album, split between each guy, 25 cents a piece. And I still never saw any money from it. But evidently, friends of mine that were out on the West Coast said everyone they knew had that album. Yeah,
really?
All their punk friends, they all had it. You know, it was everyone knows that band, and that's it. That kind of music. We used to open up for Dropkick Murphys. You know,
yeah, I remember.
They had a lot of people at their shows, thousands of people they had, and we opened up for them, and a couple times we opened up for them at the Birchill on what was it, St. Patrick's Day night at the Birchill. It was mob. And
did you remember what year, Tom? Because I was out of the loop at that.
It was the day that Gizmo got put to sleep. I literally had to bury my dog.
Damn it, and Gizmo.
I had Gizmo. I had to bury my dog. He was 16 years old. I had to bury him and then go right to the gig and play. I had to put it out of my mind. And the gig actually helped me put it out of my mind.
Yeah, of course.
Totally distraught that I had to put my dog to sleep. He was a great dog.
I remember Gizmo going up to the studio. It was a great dog. He was always greet me at the door.
Yeah, he was the studio dog. And,
their family.
I was like, I mean, this is the kind of crap I had to go through. I mean, I can't just, you know, be distraught over a dog. I got to go play and play hard.
Yeah.
You know? And then other times I did gigs with Rattlebone in one place early to open up at the Birchill. And then I would beeline it up to New Brunswick to play that place on Church Street. What was the name of that place? It was a well-known, you played downstairs.
Oh my God. It wasn't Connections Escapade. No,
this is in New Brunswick.
Oh God.
Brunswick. It was the downstairs place. It had upstairs now. The bands played downstairs.
I know Xenon played there a couple times, and Overkill. Wasn't it?
But anyway, yeah. So I would beeline it, and Niblik Henbane was the last band up that night, so I'd make it there just in time to get my drums in and then get on stage and play. I mean, that's the kind of crazy stuff I did.
That must be. Now, does that stress you out to have 2 gigs in one night, or
no? I loved it.
Or you work good under pressure.
No, I still love it. We did it recently with BBD. We played at a happy hour lightly,
Right.
not too loud, at a happy hour at a brewery. Then that night, we didn't have to play till 10 o'clock at night at the Stagehouse Tavern.
Oh
That
yeah,
was at
yeah.
22. So then we went and set up that. We did that. And then we left the equipment set up overnight because the next morning we had to come back and play the blues brunch for at 11 o'clock in the morning at the same place. So that was good because we didn't have to reset up the equipment. We left it there overnight.
Oh
So
wow.
the night before we played full out, all our heavy stuff and
Yeah.
loud. And then the next morning we played our jazzy blues stuff.
That's cool, man. That's
I mean, that was like a triple header,
so you were good under that type of pressure. I'd be going nuts. I'd be like, my God, I've got to get to this gig and I got to get to this gig, and I'd worry if I get there on time.
If I'm in a traffic jam.
Yeah.
I get in a traffic jam and I'm on my way. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, I got to get there on time, but usually a couple of times that I've been late, it wasn't so late. I was late there, just quick enough to get the drums up real fast and play at least.
Yeah.
So,
and I notice you're not playing the big double bass kit anymore. You're like,
I just picked up a brand new DW 7000 pedal.
Oh wow.
I picked it up used, but it's pretty much brand new.
Oh yeah, man. As long as it's taken care of, I mean.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's really nice. The guy hardly ever used it. I don't think he ever used it. So I picked it up for $150. What a deal, right?
Yeah. I still have an old Iron Cobra pedal. I swear by the thing, and it's only a single chain drive. It's a double bass pedal.
Yep.
I used it when I used to come to the studio when I was in my cover band. I was playing with this guy Phil, and the thing, it's a workhorse. I still have it. I mean, but I don't play double bass anymore. I don't. I'm more into
I don't practice it, and if I need, right now I'm also rehearsing with an Iron Maiden tribute band.
Yes, you were telling me. Yeah.
And these guys, it just kind of morphed out of a couple of guys up the road. The one guy I teach his son drums, and he's a bass player.
Yeah.
He wanted to get out and do something. So last year we got together. We did one gig at Crossroads, and it was really good.
Yeah.
So I played the Hendrix tribute with my band. We did all Hendrix, and then we did Iron Maiden with that band. So
That's cool.
The two bands. Right,
Jesus.
right there. That's the kind of stuff I like. So anyway, we're gonna do it again. We're booking it again. And we're probably going to be at the Crossroads, and I'm going to call Dingbats and see if we can get in there.
That'd be good. With the Iron Maiden tribute band?
Yeah, the Iron Maiden tribute band, yeah.
That'd be really good, man.
And that's it. They'll do a couple of gigs. These guys like to get the jollies off, and then we won't see each other until next year again. It's like a once a year. Yeah, it's like a once a year thing. We'll practice for about 6 weeks up to the gig, and then do it, and then see you later.
Yeah,
but it's serious thing. But it's a cool thing for me because it's a different style of drumming than the blues and stuff. It's back to some of the metal. I actually add double bass to some of it because he does a lot of single bass work on Iron Maiden,
Yes.
And I add double bass to it. I add some stuff, some double bass. I mean, I like to play the covers as close as I can, as far as all the changes and everything. But when it comes time to do a little extra, sometimes I'll add some of my own double bass in there, just a little bit.
Yeah.
So I always consider myself a single bass drummer that also plays double bass. That's basically what it is.
Yeah, I mean it's
single bass more than anything.
Yeah, it's so much fun to do that. I remember one time I came up to the studio. I was a lot younger. This is like the early '90s, and you were telling me, "Yeah, I'm really working on the hi-hat stuff, and it's a lot of fun." So I started doing it. And by 2000, I was really into jazz and funk and like all that stuff, and it was so cool. Just to play that hi-hat work, open and close hi-hat, and get into the jazz and doing the double.
Thing like called the Purdy Shuffle. I was learning some of the Tommy Igoe book, and I had to teach it to some of my students. And they got a lot of cool beats, Latin American beats, world beat, all that stuff. So it's really cool to learn these different styles, and especially those Latin beats. They're very demanding because you're doing rim shots, you're doing tom-tom, you're doing snare drum. The bass drum's doing its thing, your hands doing another thing. So it helps me out with my coordination, and I like learning different styles. I mean, it's nice to be able to do different stuff sometimes instead of the same old thing all the time. And again, I because I'm at the studio here, I hear other drummers in their rooms practice, and I listen to what they're doing, and that's how I've always learned some things from other guys. Sometimes I'll knock on their door, tell me what you're doing. I'm into that. I'm like, hey, show me what you're doing. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
I'm not too big headed that I got to think, oh, I don't want to make it look like I got to learn off this guy. I go in there and I say, hey, what do you, I like that beat. Show me that, and sometimes I'll even, once I get it, I'll write it down so I don't forget it. I'll transcribe it to myself, because then I can show it to my students too. And there was a couple of times where I came up with beats like that from other guys.
Yeah.
And not only did I learn their beat, but then I would do variations of it. So this way I could show that to my students, different variations of the same beat,
I
But
mean,
one thing I wanted to say is, when bands go on the road, like we did, we always tried to be as prepared as possible as far as expenses for food and all that stuff like that, because you don't realize how much money you can blow through when you're
yeah.
on the road, especially when you're not $1 million band. If you're just an up and coming band, all right, you're getting paid for your gigs. Luckily, we had pretty good management and we got paid pretty well. And, they put us in a hotel room, stuff like that. But there were some places where that were really skeevy. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. I mean,
But,
that's,
I would always go hunting. And the first deer I ever shot, I had it made into giant rings of sausage and ground venison, right? I had to make the ground beef, big packages. And we
yeah.
took it in the cooler with us on the road. So when we were down in Memphis, Tennessee, and we were playing, down there and places like that, sometimes they put you in a house. We had a band house with a regular kitchen, and we'd be making sausage and peppers and meatloaf, venison meatloaf, venison chili, venison stew. So we were eating good for the first week or so,
Right.
of the tour, but then once the venison ran out, then we had to start buying. And I remember sometimes, we were on a budget back then. I think the burritos at Taco Bell were only like 50 cents.
Yep.
So we would buy 20 of them, and there would be 4 of us and 2 roadies, and we'd all eat that. That was our meal.
You were telling me a story one time. It was funny. You were like, "Yeah, man, we went to California, and the best thing to bring when you're on the road is peanut butter."
Yes.
I remember you told me that.
Peanut butter, yeah, because as long as you got peanut butter and bread, you got a sandwich.
Yeah,
you don't
it's
even
protein,
need just the peanut butter and bread. And you know what? Peanut butter and bread plain with a beer tastes pretty damn good.
It's good, yeah. I mean,
the nutty flavor of peanuts and then the beer going down, it's actually pretty good.
Yeah,
so we always had our cooler filled with beer. And it was funny when we were down near Dallas, we had to pull over to get beer, and the lady says, "This is dry county." Dry county. And so we get to Dallas, and we can't even get a beer in Dallas. Dallas is dry. The only part that had the drinks was where we were playing, called Dallas City. That whole area out on the outskirts of the city had all the bars in place. So that's where you buy the liquor, And so that was like an eye opener. I never realized they had dry counties, still like prohibition. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts, man. I mean, I kind of I make jokes about this. When everything was closed during the during COVID, during the lockdown, the liquor stores were always open. And I make jokes about this because they got to make their money, man. They get,
I wish they would have left everybody open. They should have left us all open.
I know. It was sick.
It would have been, the numbers would have been the same anyway. The people who wore the mask, they got sick anyway. The people who died. The people who survived. That's just the way it was.
Yes.
Like that with anything, They could have managed this a lot better. Instead, they ruined a lot of people's financial thing. That's why I'm doing the driving instruction now, along with my gigs and with my drum lesson, because I'm trying to catch up from losing that whole year. They didn't give me unemployment. I didn't get the unemployment.
Yeah.
When I didn't pay myself a check every week, I worked off a profit. So at the end of the year, they figured out on my Schedule C what my profit and loss was, and that's how I do my tax. So I know other musicians that did the same thing, and I know one in particular who sued the Department of Labor and won a lawsuit for $14,000, but he still hasn't seen a dime. They won't pay it. Now
they won't pay it.
Well, you need to that. Yeah, they went to appeals judge. He said, you have to prove this and prove that. And he goes, look, I already proved it, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, they won't pay, because if they pay him, then me and everybody else who didn't get anything are going to go and sue. And then they'll have to pay us all. But they got the money.
Yeah.
They got the money that was never even spent. Half of this money that they sent out was never even spent. So where is it? Where's the money?
Wait, when you owe it.
I mean, that's how I got into the driving instruction, because the guy who owns the driving business, driving school, He's
Yeah.
a bass player. And when I was talking to him about it, he said, "Hey, look," he said, "get certified. I'll pay you, so much per hour." He goes, it's a sit down job in the car, I mean, it gets a little hairy sometimes. Yeah, I got to grab the wheel and I got to hit the brake, but you know, I'm used to it now, and it is a sit down job
do,
for a guy
do,
my age.
do they supply Valium with the job, Tom? I mean,
No,
I personally wouldn't be able to do it. I feel
it
like,
gets scary sometimes. It
yeah,
gets scary.
I mean, you get a 16, 17-year-old kid, it's like hit or
Right.
miss, so it's a little scary,
Some kids are great drivers, though. Some are great, but it's the
Yeah.
same thing with drums. When I'm teaching a kid drums, some kids just have it. And they
Yes.
boom, boom, boom. They can do it. Everything you're telling them. And some kids, you really got to walk them through it. And some
Yeah.
people have no talent at all, but I can get them to start playing.
Yeah.
As long as they keep practicing, and they can develop the talent. Somebody who doesn't have the talent inherently can develop the talent if they keep playing and they're persistent and they learn everything the proper way. But some kids are good right off the bat. Like when I was a kid, I just sat in and started playing by ear.
Yeah.
I heard what it was and I started playing, and that was it. I had no lessons at all. So I was in bands playing, actually getting paid to play at gigs and things until I was 15. And then I started taking lessons at 15. And then I took lessons off Carl Wolf, who was a big jazz guy at Broad Street Music in Bloomfield. So I was actually driving there with an older friend of mine who was 17, and we used to both go there together. And he'd wait while I took my lesson. I wait while he took his lesson. And it was all strictly swing jazz, like reading
Yes.
charts and all movements and all that great stuff. But I'm glad I did that, because now when I'm teaching kids, I can read the charts. I can read their stuff that the school's giving them. I can help them with it. And I can write out beats. I can transcribe songs. These kids want to learn a song. I got to be able to listen to it and then transcribe it to them, and then teach them how to play it. So that's what I do.
Question.
I'm a pretty good transcriber.
Do you find it harder for somebody who's like myself? I didn't start taking lessons till I was like 28 because I was self-taught at 10 years old, playing pot. So do you find it harder for somebody who's been playing for years and years to try to teach them music? Like, I mean, I just started reading music like 15 years ago.
Well, when I was young, I wasn't really holding the sticks exactly correctly.
Yeah.
I wasn't really doing the double stroke roll right. I wasn't doing any of that. My jazz teacher straightened all that out for me. So I was glad that I started going to him when I was a teenager, because I had time then. You know what I mean?
Right.
Once when you're still in school, you have time to practice. I would come home and practice after football practice. I would go down my cellar and play for 2 hours.
Yes.
My drum. And then, I mean, I was very disciplined at everything I was doing, not only in sports, but in my drumming.
Right.
And back then I had, the full double bass drum kit, and everybody was doing like the classic rock double bass. And then things started morphing into faster and faster stuff as the 80s, came on. You had the thrash metal,
Yes.
and the speed metal. And now you have the hardcore metal, which is like, really hardcore. And even the hardcore punk stuff was single bass stuff, but it was fast. You had to be fast and tight. So
Yes.
I tried to always flow with the times.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those guys that says, "Oh, I hate that kind of." It's like some of my students like rap, and some of the drum beats on rap songs are great.
They're sick. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, even if they're done on a drum machine, you got to try and imitate it. And I like to always say that, man, I got some cool beats of my own. That if a rapper ever came up here freestyle and I was just playing my beat, just let him freestyle rap. You know what I mean? Because that's some cool stuff.
It was crazy. I was in high school. I was like 15 years old, and I was listening to like Houdini and LL Cool J, but I was a metalhead. And all my friends were like, "What are you, a poser?" I'm like, "No, man, I'm a drummer, man. These beats are cool, man. They're wild." Cool. And I'd go home and play them. And it was like sick, man. But everybody's like, "Man, Tom, you're a freaking poser, man." But I'm like, "No, man, this stuff is cool."
The thing about music in general is it transcends race. It doesn't matter what race you are, what creed you're from.
No.
If you're sitting in a room jamming with a bunch of guys and you're making music, you're doing something that's magic.
It's magic. Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
No.
It is. And I've always played with people of different races. I mean, and that I think makes you even a better musician, because you're feeling how they're feeling their music. They're feeling how you're feeling your music. You know, they might have a certain way they do something, a certain way you do something. You know, so that whole idea is to always keep an open mind when you're in music, never to be closed minded. You know, and
Absolutely.
people who are closed minded, well, then they're limiting themselves. You know, like some guys always said to me, well, I'm single bass and that's it. I don't need double bass. I can do that. And I said, oh, well, if you're not good with single bass, imagine what extra stuff you can do if you did double bass too.
Exactly.
I said, I'm not just a double bass drummer. I'm a single bass drummer that also can play double
Double
bass.
bass.
Now,
Yeah.
I'm not super fast like some of these guys out there, but I know
Yeah.
how to play. I can play some stuff, you know. I mean, you know, I don't have to be the fastest guy around. I'm like a team player, like the catcher on a baseball team, I like to say. Yeah. The drummer's
Yeah.
a
No.
team player. You got to keep everybody in the pocket. You got to keep the band, you know, solid, you know. So I mean, that's what I like to think about. All the bands that I was in were always booked steadily. The people seem to always like us. So I guess I'm doing something right. Because
Yeah.
I'm still doing it now. I'm still doing it and getting paid to do it.
You've been
You know,
doing it since you were a teenager. And
I'm gonna rock till I drop, man. That's the
yeah.
way, that's the way it goes. I'm gonna rock till I drop. I hope that ain't for a while yet, though. I want to try to make it to 4,000 gigs. If I can make the 4,000 gigs in my lifetime, you know, I'd be happy. Yeah.
Now, Billy's coming out, he told me.
Yeah,
And,
in June, he's gonna jam with us. Yeah.
and you guys are going to get together and jam. He told me to come check you guys out. I'm definitely going to do that. I mean, you know, interviewing Billy and interviewing you and doing, I mean, you guys are making this possible for me. I mean, I'm going to have Todd Howarth on soon, you know, and Dave Sabo, and I mean, I'm friends with those guys on Facebook. I don't really know them that great, but I mean, you guys I know personally. Everybody in Pierce, even when I was in my bands, you, Billy, I mean, you guys always helped us out. I I
Yeah.
remember one
We always
time
tried to be fair with everybody.
it was so cool, man. I mean, you guys did not have big heads. You guys were like, you know,
Well, sometimes we did, but you know what? We tried to be normal too.
yeah. Well, not with me. You guys didn't. I mean, you guys were always like a friend. You know, I mean, it was different. I mean, with everybody I came up there with, and it was cool. It was really good. I remember one time.
And in the heyday, there in the 80s, in the mid 80s, it was a heck of a scene. You had a lot of clubs going up and down Route 35. You had Close Encounters, you had Mingles. We used to play downstairs at Mingles, and bands like Zebra and Overkill would play upstairs, and we'd be the band downstairs, and you couldn't get drinks upstairs. So they had to come downstairs to get drinks, and it would be us and Big Richard. We'd be playing down there a lot of times.
And see
And
you
so we
guys.
had like every Thursday night with Pierce and Big Richard, and Mingles was making some money. That club was pulling in some cash. So you had that, you had Mingles, you had JJ Rockers, you had Close Encounters, boom, 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 up and down the street. And then if you go down the highway,
Playpen.
you had the Bird Show. Oh, and then you had the Playpen too, right? Yeah, and we
Playpen.
played there a
Yeah.
bunch of times, too. Yeah.
The
I'll
pig
never
pen.
forget the time I was sitting at the bar at the Playpen, and this rock and roll looking guy with glasses on and a hat sits next to me, had hair, you know, coming out of the hat. And he's like one seat away from me, like one seat open, and then he sat down with a couple of friends of his. And he looks at me, and I looked at him. I say, "Hey, what's up?" And he said, "What's up?" And I'm drinking. So I'm drinking, and nothing's going on. All of a sudden, people are bothering him. And people start coming up and bothering him and tapping. And then some girls come up, they're bothering him, right? They just get their drinks, and they had to get up and leave because too many people were bothering. And I'm like sitting there, like, wonder why they couldn't even sit here and drink their drinks. The bartender comes over and goes, "Don't you know who that was? You were sitting next to it." I go, "No," because that was John Bon Jovi. And he couldn't even have a drink, the poor guy. I said, "Yeah." I said, "I feel sorry for him. He took one sip out of his drink and had to leave because all these people knew who it was. He was trying not to be seen. He had glasses on and he was trying to be incognito, and
Right.
and people knew who he was, and he was with a couple other guys. I think it was just him and a couple of friends of his. I don't think it was the other guys
Right.
in the band, and they had to get up and leave. They couldn't even drink their drink.
Yeah, that's a
So I
shame.
was like, wow. I don't know. And
I
then
mean,
recently, when I was playing over at this little pizza parlor in Mountainside by Westfield,
yeah.
it's like a bar with a pizza parlor. It's called Crohn's. We played there a bunch of times with BBD, You know, and
Yeah.
I bring a little teeny drum set with me. It's not a lot of room, so I bring a small set. And we're playing, and a couple of these big guys are in there. And then during break, the guy comes to talk to me, and we're talking about drums. He said, "Do a little drum solo for me." I said, "Well, I'm not really a drum soloist." I said, "But I'll throw something together." So I did I think we did Steppenwolf, Born to Be Wild, and I did a
Right.
drum solo in the middle of that. So then it wasn't real long, you know, but it was okay. And he puts a $50 bill in the tip jar, you know, because we always put a tip jar out too for some extra
Cool.
cash. So at the end of the night, the bartender comes up and he goes, "Do you know who that was you were talking to?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "That was Dave Brown, the quarterback from the Giants." Well, former quarterback. He was a former quarterback for the Giants.
Right.
He's from Westfield, you know, and I think he's coaching Westfield football next year. He's coaching the quarterback.
That's cool.
But I was like, wow, I didn't know that. That's cool. You know, he was into the drums. So,
That's wild, man.
but just weird stories like that. And then, of course, out in California, you know, in our video, we hooked up with Ron Jeremy.
Yeah.
Remember the porn star Ron Jeremy? Joe
Oh,
was his
yeah.
friend. So we got him in our video. He was hanging out with us, you know, and of course, he always had girls following him around.
Yeah.
You know, back then he was a lot younger. You know, he was younger.
Yeah.
He was in his prime back then. You know, and he liked doing videos with rock bands. He liked getting himself just about into anything that's different than porn. You know, so it's pretty cool.
I think it's so cool that you guys got to play Gazzari's and you played the Sunset Strip.
Well, let me tell you a story about Gazzari's.
Oh man.
The first time we went there, when we went out to California, we actually had gigs booked in Arizona. So we went there to play some gigs in Arizona. Then Joey says, "Dude, let's just go to California. I can get us some gigs." He goes, "I got the connection." You know, Joey was in Elliott. So he had the connection and he had the woman. He called the lady from the record company and she said, "Okay, you can park in front of my house and stay here." That's whose house we parked in front of. So we drove through the desert at night. I was driving. Back then we had a Ryder truck that was split in half in the back, like half of a camper and our equipment behind us. So we had a couch in there and a bed on the floor. So we used to actually travel in a Ryder truck like that.
Right.
So we didn't have the bus. We didn't have a bus yet. So this was like our first tour. We weren't even supposed to go to California. So we just beelined into California. We get there and we're standing there at a phone booth with a bunch of quarters. And I'm holding the quarters and Joey's putting the quarters in and making phone calls, putting the quarters. And he gets us in at the open mic jam at Whiskey A Go Go.
Right.
Our band to go on, right? To do a band thing where he could play a few songs, right? He gets us into Gazzari's, so open up. He's telling them that we just signed a deal to Capitol Records. He's lying to everybody, right? Because the record company we were signed to was Skreamin Skull.
Right.
He was telling them it was Capitol Records, right? So they were going, "Okay, well, we'll find a spot for you," and they put us in. You know, we didn't have to pay for nothing. No tickets, no nothing. So we go, and that night when we went to Whiskey A Go Go, Bobby Blotcher was there from Rat.
Oh wow.
The drummer. And then he was talking to me, and he told me, you know, he had been to Earthquakes before, you know, and
really?
He's from Somerville. And so
I didn't know that.
And then he went up on stage and jammed with Billy and Joey and Dennis. He played some drums and I played some drums. It was a really good night. We had a lot of fun.
That's cool, man.
Another time, me and Joey were in LA in a club. I think it was called the Cat House or something like that.
The Cat House
in LA.
It was on that club.
Faster Pussycat.
Faster Pussycat used to play there all the time. That place was on a TV show, or not a TV show, on a movie. It was called Decline of the Western Civilization.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here, Tom.
Call was coming through.
Oh,
so
sorry.
Anyway, we meet the guys from Cinderella there. And they're like, "Hey," the guy Joey was wearing his piercing. He goes, "Hey, it's Pierce." And then they you know, we opened up for Cinderella a couple of times back when they were up in band.
Coming band, yeah.
And now they were playing big places and we were still playing the clubs, you know?
Yeah.
And we're like, "Man, get us to open up for you." He goes, "Oh, we don't handle that anymore. You know, we'd love to have you open up for us." But he goes to the bartender, "Put these guys on our tab." So we got free drinks the rest of the night. We got hammered.
That's cool.
We were drinking for free on their tab. It was very cool.
Back then it was.
And then I remember standing on Sunset Strip. We were waiting for the one time I had my duffel bag with all my clothes, and you know, we were playing a bunch of gigs around. We played FM Station. We played the Country Club in Reseda. We played the Rain Tree in Torrance. We played a place in Anaheim, the Marquee, and then we did our video at the Waters Club in San Bernardino. But we were playing, we also played Madame Wong's, the Troubadour. So we played a bunch of clubs.
Troubadour, God.
We would book as many clubs as we could, and then we'd beeline at home. So one day I'm standing on the corner, and we're waiting for the truck, and I hear beep, 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 hey, Tommy, Tommy. And it's Anthony Kryzan with I think, my other friend, Steve Pash. They're in LA, and they do a big U-turn on Sunset Strip. They pull up, and they get out of the car. We're like, oh, man, what's going on? You guys were out here. They were out there working with a songwriter. Anthony, he was always writing songs.
Yeah.
So he was out with some big songwriter guy. I forget the name. The last name was Marks, Richard Marks, maybe. He's like a pop songwriter.
Yeah, that was Richard Marks. I don't know. I don't know if they worked with him, but yeah, he was a big.
Hits on radio.
Yeah.
Pop.
Yeah.
And they were evidently, I think they were working with him out there. So they were out there, and it was just, of all things, in all of LA, they happened to see us standing on the corner because they were driving by in a rental car. It was funny. It was
That's wild, man.
It was funny. So so that's the kind of crazy stuff. We would go on the road sometimes. We went to California once. I mean, not California, Florida. We go down to Florida, play a gig in Fort Lauderdale, drive up to North Carolina, play a gig in North Carolina, drive all the way back to Jersey, and play that night at the show place in Dover.
God.
Like crazy like that. We would like just be so we drove straight to Florida, played that gig, drove up to North Carolina, played that gig, and then drove right to Dover. So when we got to Dover, we were only like an hour away from having to go on. So we didn't even stop at the studio. We just beelined it, and we rented like a little cheap hotel room near like a crappy cheap hotel room in Dover, so we could take hours and get ready for the show while the roadies were setting up our stuff in the show place.
Right.
And then we went on and we played our show. And I think that was with I think Uncle Floyd was hosting that show that night.
Uncle Floyd show, yeah.
And we also played on the Uncle Floyd show. All the bands back then. That was a great thing to do. Uncle Floyd would have you come in and play your video or play. We actually went on and played acoustic. Joey,
is he still around, Uncle Floyd?
I don't know if he is. He's really old, but he was good, Uncle Floyd. He had the show on TV, and he always featured a band, which was cool of him to do that.
Yeah, that was great.
And you had certain radio stations, like the one up in Randolph. I think it was DHA.
I think DHA was pretty new back then, wasn't it?
Jersey band night.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they always did like a Friday night Jersey local bands, and you had SOU. You had a couple of different college stations. We had Hunterton High School had a radio station, and a couple of the young girls out there liked us, and they kept playing us all the time out there. Like by Clinton, Hunterton High School, Hunterton South, I think it was. And so we were taking airplay anywhere we could go. But I remember being on K-Rock in Houston, which was a big radio station out there. And me and Dennis were doing an interview, and one of my friends called, and I forget who it was. He goes, "What are you doing out here?" They had moved from New Jersey to Texas, and he happened to be listening to it. And it was like just a small world. I was like, what's the chance of somebody from back here also being in Texas, in Houston, Texas? We used to play a place in Houston called After Dark. That was a cool place to play. But the roaches were all over the place. Dude, they had these giant roaches, palmetto, but just step on them there. Yeah, it was disgusting. Down south, there was more roaches everywhere. But when we used to come back with the band bus, I wouldn't let anyone take any equipment off the bus until we would set off bombs in the bus.
Yeah, I mean.
And I put a cup of water, right? And all the roaches would run to the water. And I would do that a couple of times so there were no more roaches. Then I allowed the band to come in here, and then we would spray the cases with Raid. Because I didn't want this place to have, imagine if roaches got into Earthquake Studios, it would have been rampant. I never let it happen.
It's so fucking rock and roll, though. It's like so like every band has gone through that who's traveled. It's like nuts. I mean, you hear this.
When the main thing was food. Food was a big thing. So we always did the sob story when we were staying somewhere. Like in California, one time we were staying at this guy set us up at a nice condo with a big swimming pool, and a couple of the girls that liked the band would come over. We'd be like, "Yeah, we don't have any home cooked food, keep eating this crappy food. Oh, I'll make you something. They were bringing over like lasagna, baked ziti, all this really good meatball. Every time they were bringing over food for us, And then we were in Mississippi. The girls that we were hooked up with were working at the buffet. They had a lot of those Southern buffets. So they would bring us all the leftover rib, chicken at the end of the night with mashed potatoes. So we would always eat like our big dinner at like 2:00 in the morning, And one of the coolest things was the first time we went down to this place in Biloxi, Mississippi. We were playing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 4 nights in a row. Same club. So you set up the equipment and you leave it there. And you play every night. And we were getting paid a certain amount of money. So the first night we get there, we didn't have to, we got there like on a Monday. And we didn't have to play till like Wednesday. So we were just partying up, getting drunk and partying and just all happy and everything, right? We were doing a few extra things too that was making us really happy. But anyway, we were looking and there was people walking around with lanterns in the shallow water in the bay there in the Gulf of Mexico. And they were flounder gigging. They were actually they had these poles with the little, spears, and they were stabbing flounder and putting them in sacks. And then there was a couple other guys catching flounder from the dock on pole and line. And we'd go up to them and go, man, what are they doing? They're flounder gigging. He goes, look at it. And he had a whole sack full of flounder. So he goes, oh, you guys are in a band, you're playing over there. I say, yeah, this, that. He goes, you want some flounder meat? And I go, really? Flounder? You're going to give us flounder meat? Dude, he gave us like 5 pounds of fresh filleted flounder meat, right?
Oh, wow.
It was all filleted, no skin on it, all nice fillet.
Really?
I know flounder because I like the fish too. So,
yeah.
So I went back to the hotel room, me and Dennis, we ran back. We always took a deep fryer with us with oil. Yeah. We had a burner, we had breadcrumbs, we had eggs, we had everything. We had an efficiency place, So here we are at like 3:00 in the morning, frying up fresh flounder, breading it, frying it, getting the ketchup out. We're all eating flounder, all 6 of us. The 4 guys in the band and the 2 roadies. We ate all 5 pounds of that flounder one night.
You were all...
that was the kind of stuff. Food was so important. One time, a lady in Texas, we played this place. Amarillo, Texas, it was, right? And everyone's looking at us. They probably never heard of us before. So we played a certain amount of cover songs just in case. We did Turn the Page. We did that song by UFO.
Lights Out?
What song was it? We did some song by... Might have been Lights Out. Might have been the other one. There's another. We did Razzmatazz by Nazareth.
Yeah.
Yep. We did our own version of that. So we did some cool stuff. So it was a hard crowd. We played a few of our originals and nobody was reacting. So Dennis turns around and he goes, turn the page. So we did Turn the Page and they went crazy.
They went nuts.
Turn the Page. And after that, no matter what we played, they loved it.
You got...
it was like, yeah.
On that second album that you guys...
Yeah. And then that same night, this lady, she was a little bit older. He had Dennis, the lead singer, So Dennis didn't want to have nothing to do with her, but she offered to feed us all at like 2:00 in the morning. Here it is, right? Just follow me out to my house. I got all this food out there. I'll feed you guys. So we followed her out there. We ate, and then we fell asleep in chairs and on the floor. And I think she wanted Dennis, but she was mad because Dennis wouldn't go for it.
Yeah.
And
I got it. Trust me.
We got up in the morning and we all left and we had a good meal. And the lady was nice, but I mean, sometimes we did have to jump on the live grenade. We called it jumping on the live grenade.
Yeah. It's like, it's like, it's kind of like fishing.
That's right. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun. I mean, the great thing is we made enough money to make it happen. We didn't become rich from it, but we had a lot of fun. It was a great experience for me because I was in my 20s. I was in great shape, doing all that stuff. I mean, I was working out the Jack Lanes out in Anaheim, Los Angeles. I had a lifetime member. So we would go out there and work out on the off days and stuff. And we also joined the KOA campground. So when we had our bus, if we didn't have a gig for like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and we didn't have to be at a place till Thursday, we would pull into KOA and camp there for a couple of days. you know, and then Billy and them guys would work on the guitars, you know, make sure everything's good. We shine the drums, maybe get the roadie out there and shine stuff on the drums because we would get sweat and water and thing all over everything because we were disgusting on stage the way we sweat.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
and back then you had those gigantic lights. I had lights. I used to make them point the lights away from my head
yeah,
because they used to burn the back of my hair. You
yeah,
know, so the first thing I would do, they'd have giant par lights, 500 watts each. I made them point them away from me and down onto the drums. But my drum, you remember, it was all chrome, and it was
yeah,
like the metal chrome. It wasn't plastic chrome. It was like the real
yeah.
metal chrome over wood.
Right.
And all my cymbals were white, so they were chrome colored.
And that
So everything
attracts
I
the
was
light.
doing was all chrome. And when the lights hit that drum set, the heat that came off it, dude, I was weighing like they had a real scale at this one place called what was the place called? It was in Biloxi, Mississippi. It was like the something saloon. It was a big place, and I would weigh myself before the gig, and I weigh in at like 215. And then later on that night, when we were done, I'd weigh in, I'd be like 211. That's how much water weight I would lose.
Yeah, I mean,
We are cooking, man, cooking.
I mean,
You know,
at
and
our age
it's
now,
keeping
that's
me.
dangerous. But when you're younger, it's totally different animal. I mean,
Well, one guy was drinking a lot, and he passed out on the drums because he was drinking too much alcohol. I knew better. I was drinking Gatorade and cold water. I wasn't
yeah,
drinking the alcohol until after I was done. Then when I was
yes.
done, I had, you know, but
Then you
not while
have
I
it.
was playing. Right, because otherwise, you know, you get dehydrated. That's what happened to him.
Yeah,
He got dehydrated and passed out.
I never
So yeah,
passed out, but
good. But nowadays, in my old age, you know, I got to pace myself a little, you know. But
oh yeah, I
you
know
know,
that
I still
feeling.
like getting out there. I still like getting out there and huffing and puffing. You know, I mean, I don't like to turn down any shows. You know, I mean, I try to book as many shows as I can do. I got to keep myself relevant out there. If I stop doing it, then I'll get too old. I'll get instantly old. This is what keeps me young.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, music has a way of doing that. I mean, if you're gonna be a couch potato and not, and if you're a
Yeah,
musician, but you're out there and you're doing it, you're still
I got to
gigging,
do it.
and you never stopped. And this is what
Exactly.
you do for a living. I mean, and a
I
lot of
didn't do too
people,
many gigs when my first son was born and my daughter was born after that. I was only doing like maybe 12 or 20 gigs a year for those couple of years when they were
right?
little. And it started building up from there. And then you know, the last like 10 years, I was averaging probably like, you know, close to 80 to 100 gigs a year, you know,
And that's a lot.
until COVID. And then COVID kind of shut it down, you know.
Now,
But
is your
yeah, but
wife going to
I
a
was
lot of the
playing with
gigs?
like I was playing with 2 and 3 different bands always.
Yeah,
No band ever got 100 gigs by themselves, you know.
no,
So I was playing with a band called Legends of Vinyl Experience. BBD I've been playing with for the past 10 years. But during that time, I played with Intoxitunes, Legends of Vinyl Experience, uh, Stone Vox, uh, you know, whatever I can get. And what else did I do? I did some sitting, a band called MD Concept,
yeah,
played some gigs with them. I mean, you know, whatever I can get, you know. And uh, back in the day, you know, like almost 10 years ago, the Legends of Vinyl Experience had a pretty good singer. We did some pretty good gigs. That all cover stuff. It was all like classic rock, you
right.
know, Zeppelin and Cream and all that stuff. You know, so that was good.
Now, are
Yeah.
you doing any lead singing? I
Oh
know
yeah,
with
now I
BBD
am.
you
Yeah.
do. Yeah, I know
BBD
with
I do.
BBD you do.
With Iron Maiden, I do a little bit of background.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
like
I have to. BBD, I do some lead singing, probably half of it, 50% of material I'm doing. But I only sing the stuff that I know I can sing.
right.
If I can't handle it, I won't do it. And on certain nights, if my throat's starting to go, I'll just cut certain songs out.
Yeah,
You know, because we have a lot of songs. BBD has a lot of songs. We can play real light and do jazzy. We can do instrumental. We can do jazzy instrumentals. We can do real light blues. We can do real classic blues, or we can go out and do classic rock, heavy hard rock, classic rock. And lately, we've been even adding like Lenny Kravitz and stuff like that into our
yeah.
thing. We can also do a Hendrix tribute. We've got like 8 or 9 Hendrix songs. We can do like a one set Hendrix tribute. So we do that too. So, you know, I mean, we have so many songs now. And then my own personal thing, I have hundreds of songs that I know, so I could fit in with a lot of different bands. That's why I try and get different gigs. I auditioned for a band a couple of years ago before COVID, and the only gripe they had was that I was in another band. So they said, we love the way you play, but we don't want to take a chance on you having a gig when you have a gig offered to us. So
Right.
then after that, I never saw them booked anyway. So
Yeah.
I
mean,
tried to tell them, hey, I could work around it. People don't think you can work around it, but you can't. I just go with who's ever booked first. You know what I'm saying? With who's ever booked first. So, but I mean, I don't want to be married to any one band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to be free.
That's the one thing I remember when I was in the Serious cover band, going up to the studio, being married to this one band. It was only a 3-piece band, but then the bass player wanted to get another guitar player in there. He wanted to get other people in there, and he wanted to get a second band going. But the thing is, being married to one band at that time, I wasn't. It was
That's
just
okay if you got a record deal, you're going on tour, you're making money, you're promoting something that could be a career in that one band. Then that's great to be married to a band. But at this time of my life now, I mean, I got to do what I got to do to make money. So anything that's offered to me, I got to, look into it and take it. If I can work around it, work it into my schedule, I'm going to do it. That's just the way it goes. And there's a lot of musicians out there that do that because if you're going to make a living as a musician, then that's what you have to do. You have to hustle. I always try to tell people, but you have to love it. See, I love hustling. I love the challenge of trying to get as many gigs as I can get and getting out there and playing in front of as many people as I can play in front of.
Right.
And that the reward is you get paid. That's
it.
And at this time in my life, that's what I need. I need to make money, and I always needed to make money. But with the studio, I always had the studio as a side business, which was nice supplement everything I was making because I never really made a lot of money with the studio.
Right.
But I made enough, with everything else included. It was a pretty good living. I was able to raise my kids, buy a house and this and that, and I'm still, paying my mortgage and stuff. Now I'm actually collecting partial Social Security too, so I got to watch. I can't make too much money.
Oh Jesus!
If I make too much money, then they'll cancel a couple of my Social Security checks. That's how that works.
Now you're keeping up with your health too. Like everything's good and everything, for playing.
I try to. I'm trying to. I'm type 2 diabetic, so I'm trying to get back into the less carbs, less sugar thing, less soda, more water, more fish, stuff like that. But everything else seems to be okay. But I do have a lot of nagging pain in my one right leg now because that's, in football, I injured that leg. My shoulder, that was my football shoulder. I always hit everybody with in football. I had an old injury by my knee where I got 250 stitches. That aches all the time now by my knee. So sometimes I'm hobbling around a little bit, but I'm dealing with pain. I don't like taking pain pills, so I don't take them. So I deal with the pain. I'm doing natural like turmeric and fish oil and stuff like that. So I'm taking all the supplements. And evidently I had COVID, but I never got sick. So that when they did my blood test, I had positive antibodies. So I won't take a vaccine.
I had the vaccine and I still got sick. I got the booster and the vaccine.
Everyone, that's exactly right. People got the vaccine, they all got sick. They tried to lie to you and tell you it was the unvaccinated.
Look, man.
I know a lot of people that are unvaccinated that never got sick. But we might have been exposed to it like I was. I was just, I guess, asymptomatic is because I take a lot of vitamin D. I always had.
Yeah.
So even if it didn't get me, I had so much vitamin D in my system that vitamin D, naturally fights off viruses. But I do notice between a lot of people after COVID, they all have more pain in their hips and their knees, joints and stuff. So maybe something has to do with that. Maybe you never know.
It's funny you say that. I was putting my work clothes on the other morning, and I was lifting my leg to put my pants in, and it hurt. And I was
everyone I know, even you now, told me that they feel more pain after the COVID than before the COVID.
In my
That could just be
hips.
coincidence. That could just be us getting older, or maybe there was something to it. You know,
There
maybe
might have
that
been,
changed
man.
your joints. Who knows? So,
They don't know enough about that virus anyway. I mean,
it's.
one doctor will tell you one thing, another doctor will tell you another thing. It's all bullshit.
I think they did it all on purpose to make people not know, not really know, because they tell you one thing then another, one thing then another, one thing and another. And then the more you don't know, and the more you question, the more they can control you.
Of
So,
course.
and you know me, I'm a rebel. I don't like being controlled.
Yeah, I know. We're drummers. We don't like that shit, man.
Yeah, my wife controls me.
Yeah,
When I make
pretty
money, she
much.
puts out her hand. But
Well,
yeah.
I'm gonna.
So I mean, it was great talking, man. I
Yeah.
like. I got millions of stories, and there's also ghost stories about the studio too.
Oh,
Different
I
people.
didn't hear that. Tell me a quick one. Tell me a quick one.
Well, one time a door was opening and closing by itself when me and another guy were jamming late at night. So I went over and I closed the door, clicked it closed. All of a sudden we're jamming. He looks like, oh, the door, and it's opening, closing, back and forth like this, fast. So we go over by it and it opens up real slow. And we're like, man, this is freaky. So we go out to the hallway here. And there was like one of those big plastic beer mugs on a shelf.
Yeah.
It flies off the shelf and goes flying down the hallway. We both ran down the front stairs. And we
Wow.
didn't want to go back in. Now he
Uh,
said, dude, your place is haunted. He said, I'm heading home. He goes home. I had to come up here and sleep that night because I was, I had my bedroom up here. I was sleeping.
yeah.
So I just went to sleep and didn't think nothing of it. And then through the years, different people said different things. And a lot of different weird things happened up here. Don't forget, this building was originally built and standing in the 1690s.
It's an old
The
farmhouse, isn't
earliest
it?
history. Well, it used to be a grist mill with a giant water wheel.
Okay.
So it was part of Feltville. There were other big mills like this up along Surprise Lake, but
Yeah.
they all got destroyed during 100-year storms and stuff. This one
Wow.
sits just enough far back so that the water goes out towards Scotch Plains and it doesn't destroy the building.
Right.
So, the earliest record they have of it in operation was in 1728. It was fully in operation in 1728.
Jesus Christ.
Because there's a history. Yeah, there's a history book about it where you can buy it called The Rolling Hills of Westfield or something like that, where they talk about all the history of what it was like back then out here, the western fields of west of North.
Right.
And somebody the book was about Scotch Plains and Westfield, and they mentioned a lot about this building, and they had a picture of this building. They had a picture of this building in 1919 or something like that. And
Jesus. That's freaky, man.
the
Joey did.
bottom, the original bottom of the building was log bottom, and then through the place by the brick, and even when I was in here in the 80s, the one whole side of the building was all deteriorating. They had to replace the whole jack of the building and do all new foundation all along the one side.
Yeah.
So this place has been through some changes.
Been through a lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely. There's been some history here. So I'd like to
these.
think that me being here since 1979 has made some kind of history here, some kind of New Jersey music history.
Well,
There were
look.
a lot of bands that came through. We had
Let's
a lot of
face
the
it.
top musicians.
A lot of people have been up there. Members of
Yep.
TT Quick. Todd Howarth has been up there from Frehley's Comet.
Bobby Mason. Remember Bobby Mason, the singer? He
Yes.
used to come up here with Prophet and those guys.
Yeah. I mean,
Prophet, TT Quick. I mean, you had Nuclear Assault was up here.
yeah.
Jamming once. You had the guy from Ross the Boss.
Yeah.
Manowar.
And you even said Bobby Blauser from Rat. I mean, look. I
He
mean,
was up here doing something with a younger band. He was helping out.
yeah. I
Oh
mean,
no, not Bobby Blotzer. The guy from Overkill. Who's the singer from Overkill?
Bobby Blitz.
Yes, he was up here once
Yeah.
with a younger band years ago, helping produce like this younger band, and he had them rehearsing on this stage, and he was in the room,
Huh.
giving them pointers and stuff. And of course, Rat Skates was here back in the early days,
Yeah.
and a lot of the Smithereens, the guy Pat Denizio,
Pat Denizio.
not the Smithereens, but him. later on, he would come up here with his Beatles tribute band he's doing.
Right.
Rehearsed here. And I had the band, the Young Rascals up here. Remember them?
Yeah.
Good Love. They were up here.
Did the Nerds
We had
ever practice up there?
No, the Nerds never did, but
No.
Rivendell, they were a big cover band. They practiced up here. I think Sticky Fingers practiced up here.
Oh God.
Waterfront, which was a big dance band back in the day,
Yeah.
practiced up here. You know, there was a lot of different musicians that practiced up here. You know, like I said, Anthony Kryzan, Paul Crook, all those guys.
Yeah.
I was like one of the bigger. My rooms were always pretty big. I had 3 pretty nice sized rooms up here at the time.
The good thing about Earthquake, it was very reasonably priced. Everybody knew where it
Size of
was.
the room, it was reasonably priced, right?
I
The
mean,
rooms were big.
Earthquake was always the first go-to where everybody went, and if they couldn't get in at a certain night, they would have to go somewhere else. But I mean, everybody's been to Earthquake.
Yeah,
Like,
I wish it was like that now, but the guy that owns the property now, he's got the big room torn apart. He won't let me do my business here. He's taken over all the monthly rooms.
really?
It's his place. He owns it. Yeah, so he gives me a good deal on my room here, and I'm able to still do my own thing with my own bands and my drum lessons if they want to come in this room. But other than that, it's pretty much that part of the business is gone. Earthquake Studios is pretty much not really doing anything. We're not doing any hourly. I haven't done any hourly stuff in years. So realistically, I'm basically just a self-employed musician now for the band. But the great
Right.
thing is that when that went south, my gigs started going better and my drum lessons. And
Right.
that kind of made up for it, you know. So I don't really miss it. You know, it'd be nice to make an extra couple $1,000s a month, but you know what I mean. I'm doing what I do, and I'm happy doing it. So
Yeah. Now, well, that's all that matters, man. I mean,
yeah,
I
can't
remember when
argue
I
with
was
with the guy who owns the property. He does what he wants to do.
yeah.
You know what I mean, he's making his money now. You know, and that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
If he ever gets the big room together and he wants me to do something, work with him on it, you know, then we'll do something. You know,
Are they still doing
like
recording
that.
up there?
Yeah, CJ's doing his La Chateau Bow Wow thing.
Bow Wow
He's-
is still up there, right? Okay.
Yeah. And he does the Blood Feast recordings, all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're doing real well too. They still do real well. They go around.
Yeah. Yeah.
They play in like different countries, you know.
I remember I was talking to Joey. He was all excited. He's like, "I'm going to Germany, man." You know. It's
Yeah,
like,
Joey went out there. He did it,
yeah.
man. I'll tell you. It was nice to see him get out there and do stuff, you know.
He
It's a
deserved
shame
it.
what happened to him, but
Yeah.
you know what? He did what he was out there playing. He rocked till he dropped. I mean, you know. But,
Joey did gigs going through chemo. You know,
yeah.
I mean, he even going
Even
into
when he wasn't doing gigs, he was still rocking.
yes,
He was still rocking.
he was always, you know, he. I can't say enough of good things about that guy. I mean, and thank God, I tell people this. I'm like, you really didn't know Joey in the past, and everybody's got a past, but thank God for Christy.
Yeah, exactly. Great.
I mean,
She's a great woman.
she is, man. I mean, we all wish that we could have somebody to stick by our side like that, and we hope that we do.
Yep.
You know, and
Yep.
you know, she's
But
a good
anyway,
woman.
yeah, great. So, but anyway, let's end it on a high note. I want to wish everybody good luck with everything.
Thanks,
Keep
man.
on rocking, keep jamming, keep the scene going.
Definitely. Tom, thank you so much for being on the show, man. I appreciate it.
All right. And don't forget, we got up and coming big outdoor gig coming up at the Sterling Hotel, April 29th outside. Yep.
Cool. All right, hold on.
Man.
Let me stop the recording. All right, Tom. I will talk to you soon, bro.
Sounds good, man. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Bye-bye.